There is no emotion. There is peace. There is no ignorance. There is knowledge. There is no passion. There is serenity. There is no chaos. There is harmony. There is no death. There is the Force. The Jedi are a fairly well-known group of Force users within the Star Wars universe. Many of you will know them as the brave guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy before their tragic fate at the end of the Clone Wars. But for all the good they did, the Jedi Order also had a fatal flaw. It was a flaw that persisted within the Order unnoticed and unacknowledged for nearly 1,000 years. Here, I will attempt to convince you that the Jedi Order, despite its good intentions, was doomed to be destroyed. But first, some background. The Jedi Code is centered around the mastery of one's emotions through training and meditation. In order to be in control of one's emotions, one must learn to let go of their attachments. Attachment represented the inability to accept change as a fundamental part for improvement. Having attachments created a fear of loss. In the words of Grandmaster Yoda, fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. Hate is the emotion that fuels the dark side of the Force. Consequently, the Jedi were forbidden from forming attachments of any kind. This is why children were brought into the Jedi Order at a young age, so they wouldn't have time to develop any attachments. Mastery of one's emotions gave the Jedi a level of neutrality few others could achieve. This neutrality made Jedi uniquely suited as mediators and humanitarian leaders. This proved particularly true during the 1,000 years of peace that existed before the Clone War. However, this long period of peace would prove detrimental to the Jedi Order during the war. As Master Windu had said, Jedi are keepers of the peace, not soldiers. Nevertheless, the Jedi were put in charge of the clone army. Right off the bat, the Jedi's inexperience was painfully obvious. In Attack of the Clones during the Battle of Geonosis, clone commando units trained in stealth and special operations were used as frontline soldiers. The decision to lead the clone army in a frontal assault over terrain that provided little cover resulted in some of the heaviest losses of the entire war. So, while tactics weren't the Jedi's strong suit, some would say that the Jedi were actually great generals. The control of their emotions allowed them to make unbiased decisions and safeguarded them from irrational decisions and hasty actions. Another good attribute the Jedi had was the value they put on life. The Jedi viewed each clone as an individual whose life was just as sacred and just important as anyone else's. The Jedi recognized the differences between soldiers who shared the same face. While caring for their soldiers and avoiding hasty and irrational decisions is important, these alone do not make a good general. Good generals acknowledge that death is a part of war, and as such, ending the war quickly by defeating the enemy is paramount. The compassion the Jedi showed towards their soldiers kept them from taking full advantage of their strength by not striking the enemy when they were vulnerable. Kindness is not what wins wars. It takes aggressive and decisive action to do that. Because of the Jedi's failure in this regard, the clone army paid dearly. For as noble as the Jedi Code was, it was also what made the Jedi vulnerable. Chancellor Palpatine recognized this and took full advantage of it. The war was merely a diversion, meant to occupy the attention of the Jedi and to make them blind to their own downfall. Putting the Jedi in command of the clone army was done purposely so as to compromise the integrity of the Jedi Code and capitalize on its shortcomings. The Jedi were forbidden to form attachments, but this proved difficult when the clones around you became your family. The Jedi are taught to preserve life, yet they carry out the duties of executioner. The guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy became the bringers of death, destruction, and suffering. With their attention on the war, they were unable to fulfill their role as humanitarians. The Clone War cast a shroud of darkness over the galaxy and put the Jedi into a state of paradox where they could not be true to their code whilst also waging war. The Jedi became the architects of their own destruction. However, these flaws were simply a result of the situation the Jedi were put in. These flaws would not have mattered had the Jedi not been put in charge of the clone army. Instead, the fatal flaw the Jedi suffered from and were destroyed by existed within their very own code. It's a flaw that every Jedi has without knowing it. That flaw is fear. The Jedi forbid attachments because they lead to fear, which eventually leads to the dark side. The Jedi forbid attachments because they themselves have an attachment to life and to the light side of the Force. This attachment led to a fear of the dark side and the Sith. Chancellor Palpatine put his apprentice Count Dooku, a Sith Lord, in charge of the Separatist Alliance and made sure the Jedi knew it. The Jedi, their judgment clouded by fear, accepted command of the clone army. During the war, the aforementioned shortcomings of the Jedi were revealed, and the Jedi became the very thing they pledged to protect the galaxy from. And so the Jedi's fatal flaw is revealed. The Jedi Code was written out of fear itself. Thank you for listening, and may the Force be with you.